We're back with two more Dime Novel Legends Cavalry Kickstarter figures. On the left is the Junior Officer, on the right is the Major General. As a quick disclaimer, Chicken Fried Toys did send me these figures for this review, so you could see what these actually look like if you haven't received your figures yet, because I've been seeing notices going out left and right, and even some people receiving their figures, which is super exciting news. Y'all have had a long wait, and I know Chicken Fried Toys has had a long wait as well, and it's just really exciting to finally see these figures getting out into people's hands. And I'm not even part of the company. I just think it's really cool that they are finally making it out. That's an awesome thing to see another, even delayed, successful Kickstarter. So let's grab the Junior Officer over here. Let's take a closer look here. It says down here, Portrait of Jesse McCracken. Well, let's see. Does that look like Jesse once we get into focus? I'll let you be the judge of that, and let me know in the comments below. Flip it around. There is a little blurb about the Junior Officer right there. You could pause and read that if you'd like. Got the digital render, you got the cross sale, and then down at the bottom right corner, 1,000 pieces. If you want this figure, keep an eye out on the Chicken Fried Toys website. The leftovers will be available over there. And from what I understand, there won't be many. So if any of these grab your interest and you missed that Kickstarter, well, head over there, I would say probably within the next week or so, or head to Facebook, join the Dime Novel Legends Facebook group, and notices will be sent out, I'm pretty sure, when figures will be available for order. So here's the Major General. We'll flip this around, and there's a little bit of info about the Major General. You can pause and read that if you'd like. There's that. There's that. Down here on the right, 1,000 pieces. I think we're done looking at the packages. Let's get these things open. We'll begin with the Junior Officer with the actual figure over here on the left side, and I'll throw up the digital render on the right side over here so you can see if there are any differences between when it was advertised and the actual release. Next, we'll look at the accessories, beginning with the handgun. Then we have his sword, his hat, and the Chicken Fried Toys figure stand with 3 pegs. So I think this figure looks pretty good. There's not really a loser in any of them, I would say. I think they all are very well and lovingly designed. There's a much closer look at the face. We'll kind of go through the entire figure here. Again, here's a holster that does not open. You can't slide the handgun into it. You've got a sheath for the sword, which is attached onto the belt, and I can't tell if that's really truly removable or if it's affixed into place somehow. But it is kind of loose, so if you mess around with this figure too much, you might rip this off. So I would recommend not messing around too much with this or getting it snagged on something. It might rip off. Yeah, I'm just kind of peeking there. Yeah, it might rip off if you're not careful. You got a nice little gold US buckle there. On the back, he's got a little pouch. The belt is molded into this jacket. It's not a separate piece like some of the other figures, so you can't rotate it around. You can't move it up and down. And there's nothing on here to scoot around. So it's all one piece except for the holster, which is added on, and the sheath, and this pouch that's on the back. All those are added onto the figure. Got light blue pants with a nice little yellow stripe down the side. Black calf-high boots. It's a very nice cavalry-looking soldier. You know, I've been looking at these figures and just kind of thinking back to way back, like in the 70s and 80s, when they had just like those little toy army men and toy cavalry people, and that have like no articulation. Like, this is a really cool, you know, place to be right now, where you get figures kind of like this. You could buy a bunch of these things and have a really cool little cavalry setup. And then of course there's the upcoming buckaroo that allows you to kind of create your own cavalry person, which is really neat as well, and we'll be getting to that very soon. So articulation wise, this figure can look down and he can look up about that far. It's not as great. These are on a ball joint, if I haven't mentioned before. There's no hinge in the neck. The arm rotates all the way around, and if you have any difficulties articulating any of the arms or legs, any body part on here, make sure you heat it up. You don't want to break a piece off of your new figure, so it doesn't hurt to heat it up with a hairdryer or maybe some hot water. Give these guys a nice hot bath. They've been out in the field for a while. They might need a bath anyway. That smell is not your dog. I'm just kidding. Arm goes up about that far, so there's a hinge rotation at the elbow, hinge and rotation at the wrist. This guy is a lot better with the hinge. Some of the longer coats or the larger gloves make the hinge a little bit difficult, but you can actually get this hand to hinge just a little bit, which is kind of cool. So there's a ball joint there at the waist. If you want him to do the splits, because of the coat, he can only go about that far. If you want him to sit, because, you know, we need cavalry sitting in cars and trucks and all that, he can go about that far. Double pin knee. His knee goes back. Actually, let's straighten that leg up. Pretty decent. Yeah, that's pretty decent. And again, the same comment I've had about the boots as I've had before. While there's a hinge and a pivot, they are not very useful. Let's see. I actually tried working on this guy just a little bit. So right now, without any heat whatsoever, and I want to make sure I mention that, without any heat whatsoever, just straight out of the box, I can get him to go back about that far. And then leaning forward, I can get him to go back that far. I might have to try heat to see if it loosens up that joint, and maybe what I'm experiencing really is kind of like plastic stick. That's what I'm going to call it, plastic stick from, you know, preheating and so forth. But the pivots generally work pretty good. That way, if you want to get him into, you know, kind of an, let's see, we'll pivot this, kind of like an odd side stepping pose or something, then you should be able to. Just within the limitations of the fact there's no thigh rotation or boot cut. But you can get him into a few little poses, and when you're putting these guys on a shelf, you don't really need a lot. And these really are not meant for playing. They really are meant for photography or shelf display. And you know, you can tell that just by how they're designed. With a flap like this is absolutely not a everyday play toy. So anyway, yeah, this is the junior officer. Not looking too bad there. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot. Why don't we gear him up? I like this hat. I like this hat so much. The black hat with the yellow, the rope. I'm sure there's an official term, but honestly, I don't know it right off the top of my head. You can slide the sword right there. Hold the sheath as you slide it in so it doesn't rip it off. And I gotta say, I love swords. I love figures that have swords, so these two are becoming a quick favorite because of that. Put his handgun there. I didn't do a very good job. I can take the sword back out and give it to him in his left hand. There we go. He can yell, "Charge! Charge!" Yeah, his hat's not actually on all the way. There we go. "Charge!" I said, "Charge!" That might not be exactly how he sounds, but that's how my figure is going to sound. Put the gun down a little bit. There we go. Charge! We need some horses. Wasn't there horses in the campaign that this is why we needed to fund the horses right here. Because cavalry without horses, you know, it's like bicyclist without a bike. That almost doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is moving on to the next figure, to the Major General. And I'm going to just admit right this second, so you all know there's going to be some bias with this figure, because this is the primary reason that I backed the Kickstarter originally, because this guy looks so freaking cool. He's got so much going on. And we'll get more into that in just a moment. But anyway, on the left side, you have the actual figure that you can see in hand. While over here on the right is the original digital render. And you can see if there are any differences. And I'm sure there might be one or two that you see. But we'll get into that in a moment. So let's take a peek here at the accessories, beginning with the gun. Another nice silver gun with a black handle. His sword. His hat. And finally, a Chicken Fried Toys figure stand with 3 pegs. So as I said, the Major General is the major reason that I backed the Kickstarter to begin with. I just thought this guy looked so awesome. He's got so many colors. He's got so many little embellishments. The face I thought looked pretty cool. And I will admit that the result compared to the 3D render doesn't quite... The reality is, it doesn't quite live up to what I was expecting from the original, but it's still such a good face. It is still such a good head. We're going to get in real close. It might not have nearly the amount of detail as I was hoping originally, but come on, that's still a good-looking head, and he's got some nice wavy, partial hair there. Not partial like he's balding, but like just partially wavy. I mean, it's still a good face. I like the designs. I like the colors. There's a lot to like with this figure, and it's not to diminish the coolness of the other figures at all by any means. I really like this. Was the primary one. This one and Black Rope were the ones that I was the most interested in during the campaign. He's got a red sash, and that's pretty neat. He's got the same kind of sword holder, sword sheath, where it's connected here to the belt, but it's, I would say, a fragile piece. This is not a daily toy. This is a pose or photo toy. And what's interesting is this guy has a holster for his gun. The only one so far. That's kind of interesting, kind of neat. The belt is part of the sash, so the whole sash and belt kind of move around. It's pretty tight, so it doesn't really move around, but it kind of can move around a little bit. We'll go up here. He's got some nice detail here. This guy's got a little bit more detail than some of the others. Let's see if I can get this in a good light. Trying to figure out how to hold this guy well so you can see. There we go. Let's try this. He's in a running pose now. So anyway, can I get this close? There we go. So you got the spurs back here, the silver spurs and parts. He's got some gold around the straps on his boots that help hold, it looks like, those spurs on. So he's got a little bit more ornate, a little bit more detailed, and it's probably because of his rank. The Major General, gets some perks that the other guys don't. He's got a red scarf around his neck, which kind of hides behind his hair. Like, it goes up here, and then it's like, it's gone. His hair is hiding it. He's got some star ranks here on his shoulders. He's got some little detail there on the gloves. Yeah, just overall, it's a very neat-looking figure, and it's the characterization. He's interesting. I like interesting figures that don't look all regular, normal, and I think that beard helps with the face and just the colors. So I'm a nut for some of that kind of stuff. Something that makes a figure look interesting. So articulation-wise, after he stands back up, he's had one too many at the local saloon, he can look down about there. He can look up about there. I've got to be honest, this head doesn't really move, like, at all. Very little on this ball joint, and I don't know if it's because of the sculpting of the hair or what, but yeah, he doesn't really move at all, and that's a bit disappointing that he can't look. Okay, it's a bit disappointing that he can't, like, look up to look his enemies straight in the eye. He can rotate left and right. His scarf goes with it. You can hold on to that scarf and it stops, but then it kind of gets stuck. I think the scarf ends up being just a little bit tight. I don't know, can we pop this head off? Oh, man, that is some sharp hair. If we pull this head off, be really careful. That hair is sharp. So it does look like a pretty small scarf. It's pretty tight there. As you can see, it fits on there pretty tight. So, just because this was the guy I'm looking forward to, I'm going to be probably a little bit more positive and critical at the same time about this figure, because I'll be looking at some details. Oh, snap! Almost literally. So it's a very tight fit there, and the scarf is kind of tight. Arms can rotate and hinge. And again, as I've mentioned, if anything's too tight, use a hairdryer, give them a warm bath. They probably need it. They've been out on the field too long. Arm can bend almost 90 degrees, but not quite. Ball joint at the waist, and I'll say this again, I love the design. I don't need chest cuts. I don't need that there. I've always thought the ball joint or the O-ring at the waist is a pretty awesome articulation point for a figure's upper half. If you want him to do the splits, surprisingly, he can do them well. And if you want him to sit, because Major Generals sometimes need to race to the front of the battlefield in their car or their truck, You could actually have him sit in a vehicle, and just for kicks, I might put him in the truck. I think I got to see this guy in a truck. He can put his knee or his leg back all the way back there with those double joint. I'm trying to get this thing out from under his arm. Get out of the way. Sword. He's been all over the place just to show that double pin knee. And the same as all the others, a little bit difficult at the hinge of the ankle. If I push it, that's about as far. I can get him back about that far. If I push it, about that far forward. And there is a pivot there that works, I would say, maybe a little bit better than a few I've seen. Actually, that's not a pivot. Wait, that's a rotation. He's got a rotation down here too. Did I miss out on this guy? Oh, hey, look at that. That's right. There's a pivot, a rotation, and a hinge down here. I can't usually do one of those, and so I forget about them. But yeah, okay. I'm back. So there is a decent rotation down there. And the pivot is the one that's a little bit more difficult, I think. I think that's what it was. I confused that. But there's a hinge there. And like I said, maybe if I heat these things up, maybe the joints down at the ankles will work just a little bit better. All right, so now it's time to gear this dude up because I've been very anxious to gear him up. Let's get his hat on. Is that the right way? I think that's the right way. Hang on. Yep, according to the render, that is where the hat is. Like, it's on that way. Yeah, that looks cool. Okay, I'm trying my best to be objective here. So I told you at the beginning I might be biased. The gun will slide right into that holster. Now, I'm going to just throw this question out, not as a criticism, but more of a curiosity. If this guy gets a holster for his gun, why couldn't the others? Why couldn't all the other figures have the same style of holster? Now, that's more of a genuine question, because is this like a rank thing, or is it just a design thing? Like, I'm not saying that, like, underlings, lower people in the cavalry wouldn't have a holster, but would they not have this kind of an open holster? So I'm curious if that's something that's just to make this character more special in that way. Okay, now I'll get off that, because like I said, it's not really a criticism, it's more of a question of why couldn't they? Because I don't know. Actually, could do that and he could be like a pirate cavalry. Actually, you know what? Gonna screw something up here. I know this is absolutely not how it's meant to be. With that red sash and the hat that way, I think we've just had a pirate cavalry crossover here. Anyway, okay. So there we go. We've got the Major General, and he's majorly cool. Now I gotta do this real quick. Let's do this. Get that sword in the hand, and he's leading the charge. We need that horse. Let's put it down so you can see it. Charge! I said charge! Why do I get the feeling that I want to watch Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian again? I don't know. I kind of really want to watch that movie right now. I don't know. You tell me in the comments, if you get the same feeling. This guy is really cool. Again, not to diminish any of the others. This guy is a character in of itself. Charge, I say. Charge! And here's a final look at the tomb, the Major General, the Junior Officer, and I think this is a very interesting duo that I've paired up here. I didn't realize it at the time. I was pairing these figures up based off of other reasons, but it's kind of interesting that the only two that come with swords end up being in the same video, and they all have hats. That doesn't really count. They all have handguns. These guys have the sword sheaths because they're swords. I think it's just fascinating that I end up pairing these two together. The other thing that I can tell just by looking at them, which I think is really kind of interesting, is how different they look. There we go. The difference in that this looks like what I'd classify as a more classic cavalry character or figure or person. We'll get the right word out here in a moment. A classic cavalry person with the something that when you imagine the cavalry, you kind of picture, at least I do, something like this. The light blue pants, the blue coat, the black hat and stuff like this. Whereas this guy, and I'm not wanting to diminish anything here when I say this, this is almost more like a fanciful cavalry character. With all these colors and the more exaggerated characteristics. I mean, this is a... There we go. I beat him. The more interesting face sculpt compared to some of the others. There's a larger than life feeling with this guy. There's an everyday man feeling with this one. And that's also not to diminish anything about the real person that any of these head sculpts might be based on. I'm referring to the figure as a whole of what they resemble to me at this moment. Because at the bottom of it all, I think they're both very cool. They both have a very good place in this cavalry line. And I think any of you who want to get these figures are going to be quite pleased, quite happy. This whole cavalry line has been just really awesome. I don't know that I've really gotten anything from Chicken Fried Toys that isn't good. Because I've said before, and I haven't really said it a whole lot this time, this is a line, an action figure line designed with love. And I can see that with the detail, with the care, that through difficult and trying times, he is still trying to put these figures out and get them into the hands of those who would like these types of things. And that's not also to diminish other companies and their mindset. I don't know, I get a different feeling with these. Alright, I'm going to get off of that now. I didn't mean to give you a mini lecture, but if you found this video useful and you missed any of the others, check in the lower left and the lower right hand corner for some other videos in the Cavalry series. Otherwise, I will see you next time.